Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traven, and in today's video I'm going to talk about 10 new series I want to take a look at in 2025. Recently I did a video of all the fantasy series that I'm reading and whether or not I was going to continue them, maybe finish them up, or definitely going to continue. And it got me thinking about all these other epic fantasy series and sci-fi series that are out there that I've not even taken a look at yet. And so I composed a list of 10 titles that for one reason or the other I want to take a look at and just haven't gotten around to it yet. So I want to try to focus on that as part of my reads for 2025. 10 series that I want to look at, and I have the title of the first book in the series as well as the number of books in the series currently released. I'm going to start with the titles that I'm most excited for and then go into the ones that I'm a little bit more hesitant about for one reason or the other. Starting off with the series that I'm most excited about and most want to read for a variety of reasons, it is the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. So I want to get to this one for a number of reasons. First, they're shorter books. They're novellas around 170 pages, maybe sub 200, so they should be easier to get through. Second is I have right now 4 of these books on loan from my friend, and I believe we've had these for literally years because he is a very patient person. And so I really need to get through these. Also, I've discovered recently that Martha Wells, the author of the Murderbot Diaries, was a member of the same sci-fi horror fantasy group that I was in college. So that just gets me even more excited to read this series. So this is top of my list for a number of reasons, and I really am going to make sure that I get through at least these 4 titles this year. The next series I want to talk about is the Sun Eater series. The first book in this series is Empire of Silence, and this is one I want to read based off of kind of the hype that BookTube has raised for this series. Particularly, Daniel Green has talked extensively about the series. He did a comparison with this series versus the Stormlight Archives. In my mind, giving the impression that these are comparable titles in the epic fantasy and sci-fi spaces. I'm now caught up with the Stormlight Archives, and I've only got a handful of Cosmere books to get through at the moment. I'm very excited to start an epic sci-fi series that's on the same level as the Cosmere and Stormlight Archives. There have been 7 books so far released to this series, so that's a little bit intimidating to me. But again, I just want to pick up the first book and dabble in it and see what it's like. The third series I want to take a look at in 2025 is called The Band. The first book in the series being Kings of the Wild, wild spelled W-Y-L-D. This is a 3-book series, and it's one that I've heard some rumblings about. Not a whole lot of the booktubers that I follow are raving about it, but I feel like it came up in a conversation or in a group, maybe on Reddit, about seeing a different perspective of epic fantasy, and so I definitely want to take a look at that one. The fourth series is the Malazan series. The first book is titled Gardens of the Moon. This is one that, again, a lot of BookTube raves about it. It seems like a darker fantasy, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the length because this is a 10-book series, and so that's a big commitment to get through. But I have to remind myself that there's no time frame for these things, and what I'm hoping to do is just dabble in the different titles. So, again, I don't know too much about this series, other than it seems like a more realistic, darker meditation on war, and is another one of these fantasy series that is getting a lot of attention in the BookTube space. Series number 5 is Red Rising, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a YA series, but it is another one that I think a lot of people have gravitated to and talk about in these discussions. I know that this one deals with what seems like familiar YA territory, where you have different factions and the main character is a red. I believe that means they're a worker And there is, of course, the Red Rising comes from the idea that once they realize the truth of their world, there's going to be an uprising and they're going to rebel against the tyrannical government system. All of these things seem like very typical YA trappings from as far back as Hunger Games and even before, when the YA scene, this dystopian YA scene, first started gaining popularity and exploding in popularity. So I'm curious to see what is it about Red Rising that has people so excited, and why is it such a hyped title. This is a 6-book series, although my understanding is that it's soon to be a 7-part series. I believe 7 will be the last title. That's mid-range for a lot of these series, and it is YA, so I think the book length is generally shorter than some of these other titles. So that's refreshing to know. Number 6 is going to be Books of Babel. The first book in this series is Senlin Ascends. This one I just came across doing quick research for this video, but it centers around a maze, a puzzle of a tower, and the trials that the main character goes through. It seems like it's very much going to be a meditation on that main character and looking at how they are coping with grief and how going into this tower puzzle maze thing is going to change them, and the effect that that is going to have on them as they move forward through this trial. Covers looked really cool. The story sounded interesting. I like the idea of like puzzles and mazes. I'm hoping that some of that reflects in the prose, where you have to figure out things. The gambling subgenre of manga is one of my favorites, and I really do like being introduced to a puzzle and getting the rules explained, and then having to figure out, okay, how do you actually get through this without getting hurt? And it seems like from the setup, at least from the description of the books, that is a possibility for this series that I'm very excited about. Only 4 books for this series, and it seems like it's complete, so it's another one. So that's another point in its favor. It's not going to take overly long to work through the books. Series number 7 is The First Law, the first book of which is The Blade itself. This is by Joe Abercrombie, who shows up from time to time in the different lists that I'm viewing. Not only in this, but there was a new release that I saw coming out next year from the same author. I know I've heard rumblings of this in the booktube space. First heard people talking about it and talking about First Law. I was confused because I thought they were talking about Wizard's First Rule, which is a terrible book, and I do not like that series at all. That's the Sword of Truth series. And so I thought that that's what they were discussing, but no, it's just a completely different series. And it's another one that I know is highly rated in the booktube space. I've not looked up too much information about it. We go into a lot of these titles without a lot of expectations. And so that's another one that just on the force of recommendation and hype that I want to take a look at next year. These next 2 are my more classic older series of books that I just have never gotten to, but my peers, people my age, have read them, and I have several friends. So this is less off of the booktube space and more off of friends' recommendations and coworkers' recommendations, and just wanting to experience those stories so I can take part in those conversations. The first of these is The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The first book is called The Gunslinger. This is a series that is 7 books long. I had a coworker from my previous job who talked to me about it extensively, and how when she was reading, she got up to this one point and it was literally years before the next book released. And so she told me, like, when you're reading the books and you get to this part, think about how long I had to wait for this cliffhanger to resolve. I don't read a lot of Stephen King. I feel like the books are intimidating. The length of the books is intimidating. And I feel like generally his style of horror is not really what I enjoy reading. It's a little bit some of the themes and the material that he chooses to put into his books is not something that I enjoy reading. So I'm curious. This is more of his big fantasy, from the sounds of it, like a world-hopping epic. And so I'm curious to see if that style of writing or that genre will help with my distaste for his other works. Series number 9 is Dune. I know I'm really late to this particular party. There was a YouTuber I watched years ago that had a book club, and they had read it at one point, and I didn't jump on it then. The movie came out, and I didn't jump on it then. I need to read this book. I have so many friends that this is like one of their major points of reference for sci-fi, fantasy, epic series. The series is 8 books long with a little bit of an asterisk. I know that some of the later books were not written by Frank Herbert, and there are lists online and videos online that talk about like how far do you need to get in to the Dune series really. And I feel like I watched one where it was like, if you want to just have a satisfying story, you need to read like X number in, like maybe 4 or 5 in, and then you can stop. And then the rest of it is only for like people who are obsessed with it or completionists, and don't worry about those. So they had several different like tiers of when you can drop off the series. We shall see after looking at the first book where I decide I'm going to fall in that spectrum. But 8 books again is on the upper end of the range here. That is a lot to invest in for a series. So hopefully. So I think I would only do the full 8 if I was really enjoying every book. Number 10 is kind of my like offbeat weird series that I want to take a look at, and that is the We Are Bob series, which starts with We Are Legion. This is about a man who dies and is resurrected as an AI for this system, and then I believe over the course of the series he just starts to propagate into more and more technology and more robots and things, and it sounds kind of adjacent to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in that kind of irreverent offbeat humor. Even the descriptions kind of give that feeling to it, and like I said, this is kind of the offbeat kooky series. I've heard about this one a little bit, like it doesn't come up in conversations often, but it seems like the people who enjoy this book really like it and really try to push it and try to get other people to take a look at it, and it seems like the kind of humor that works for me. So I'm definitely interested, and I want to take a look in the new year. Only 5 books in that series, so its length is also something that is appealing in that it doesn't seem overly long. I know that book 5 either just released or is going to release early next year. Maybe there will be more in the future, but 5 seems like a doable amount, a reasonable amount to get through and not become overly burdensome. And that's going to do it for my video today. Please comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these series. What would you recommend them? Anything that I need to know going in? Are there any other epic sci-fi or fantasy series that you would recommend I take a look at in the new year? So much out there. And there's so many different voices vying for your attention in the booktube space. So if there's something that you feel is flying under the radar, or maybe I haven't heard of before, post in the comments below. Let me know why it's something I should take a look at. Why is it an amazing title? I hope your reading journey is going well, whether you're reading one-offs or the largest of epic fantasies. And until the next one, take care.